Peace, everybody. How's it going? My name is Obi Akpuda. I'm a program manager here at Microsoft for Startups. And also, in addition, I'm a 3-time founder, as well as a self-taught engineer, just among many other things. And so today I want to talk all about building that winning prototype. When we talk about building anything, we talk about any masterpiece, anything that's worthwhile. It starts with a plan. And so I want to dive into this to show some best practices and some things that I've done myself and I've seen other companies and other products do well in order to not only launch, but scale their products. So hope you guys enjoy everything that you guys learn from here. And as always, happy hacking. When we talk about the startup journey as a whole, it could be really divided into many pieces, but for the sake of argument and the sake of this conversation, we'll break it down in 4 sections. And so we have the idea, MVP, product market fit, and as well as the exit. And between those, we have 3 subsets of 3 different stages, which again is a pre-MVP, which again, startups at this point are usually designing, building, iterating on their product to bring it to market. So bring it to life. That's really the first step for the rest of your life. And so the second one is the pre-product market fit. And so you'll hear the words product market fit a lot. It's a common thing along the series and along my 0 to 1 series that I have that I'll tell you about here in a few. But again, just remember that pre-product market fit, at this point, you've really built your product and maybe you already found your first customer or two. Maybe you found things that you've done well and you're trying to find that a repeatable, scalable solution. And lastly, you've achieved that product market fit. You've understood who your customer is. You've been able to sell pretty well at this point and you're looking to scale and you're looking to acquire more customers, get to a bigger market, and obviously just take it to the next step from there. Tell you guys a little bit more about what we do. Microsoft for Startups, we're on a mission to help all founders innovate and grow no matter their background, location, or progress. And so Founders Hub is a digital platform that provides all founders at any stage with free resources to build a successful startup. So again, we believe in inclusivity. We believe in access to all. And so this platform is going to provide technology benefits, cloud credits, access to guidance to scaling resources, mentorship, networking, plenty more. And so unlike others in the industry, we at Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub, we don't require any startups to be investor backed or any third party validated to sign up to access these benefits. It's truly plug and play. We want to be able to make this available for everybody. Sign up now for Microsoft Startups at allthingsstartups.microsoft.com. 0 to 1 is the process that I created loosely based off of both the design thinking process as a whole, if you're familiar with it, and as well as the book made famously by Peter Thiel, who's the investor. Go look him up if you haven't. So won't have to give him a plug here. I'm pretty sure you guys know who he is by now. But I thought of the process and, again, my own experiences from being a founder, my own experiences of being an engineer as well, and try to find things that were good and some things that I found that they're repeatable and scalable as well. And so I broke it down into a 6-step process. And so I'll dive into each point, starting with the intro to intro to UX, as well as design thinking. And again, this is all about how a product feels, solving complex problems with an action and solution-oriented approach. And obviously, design thinking, which is a 5-step process that a lot of startups and a lot of product managers and designers live by in terms of, a process and a framework that they use in terms of building a product. And within that, we have the second point, which is the product lifecycle. And again, this is about user-centered design. And I broke it down into 5 points myself, which would be strategy, discovery, analysis, design, and production. And so this is all about the framework of ideation. And again, this is taking you from ideation to prototype to MVP. And the third, we have empathize and define. Again, at this point, we want to get an understanding of who our customers are, understand what the problem is at large as well. And so again, this is where I tell people where the prototyping usually starts. And so getting to know the user at a deeper level, defining the user's needs and the problems. And so from there, you'll be able to form the best solutions. Moving on to step 4, which is the art of ideation. When we talk about ideation, this is all about defining your who, what, and why. If you're talking about who your who, what, and why is, at this point, we want to talk about and really start defining what that unique value proposition statement is. And for that, you'll be able to answer the question of, we do X for Y by doing Z, which is a great framework that I've used and I've seen other companies and other founders use in terms of trying to figure out what they do best and trying to summarize what they do, not only for the sake of understanding the core mission at hand, but also in terms of just trying to maybe acquire users, maybe to get some early buy-in, which we'll talk about some of the pros of, prototyping as a whole. But again, think of the art of ideation as just where, your ideas are going to start forming. And from here, we want to welcome all bad ideas. And so I know in school, they always tell you that there's no such thing as a stupid question. This applies here within the startup realm as well as it relates to prototyping. And then step 5, obviously, is the rapid prototyping. Goes without saying, this is where we're going to start getting digital, if you want to call it that, or, we'll start talking about different ways of prototyping and wireframing, the differences between the two, how it can help you and accelerate your product vision as well as dive into the difference between low fidelity and high fidelity prototypes. Again, getting into the inner workings, the nuts and bolts of, from a design standpoint, what's the difference between the two? They both have similarities, but again, depending on what you're doing, depending on what the scale is, and depending on what your budget and time is, more importantly, is going to usually dictate in terms of what you're trying to put out from there. And so we'll talk about what rapid prototyping is as a whole. And then lastly, which will segue us to the next point, which is from prototype to MVP. So now that you've built it, now we have to build out the information architecture, choosing your stack, and obviously scaling it to a bigger scale and to a bigger level. So now that we've talked about 0 to 1, let's dive into what I talked about before, step 5, which would be the rapid prototyping, and more importantly, the difference between wireframing and prototyping as a whole. Like we talked about before previously, wireframes and prototypes. I can get into the nuts and bolts of it, but the best way I can frame it to you guys is a wireframe is a low fidelity outline sketch of a product, screen, or page. And so think about it as a blueprint. And if you are a construction worker or if you are an architect, you're not just going to go somewhere and freehand or build something out of memory or build something because you kind of have, a sixth sense. And so that's always great. But again, as you're building anything that's a masterpiece, you want to at least have a rough draft, a sketch. You want to be able to, draw a skeleton, an outline that'll help you really just understand the core functionality of what you're trying to do. And again, as it applies to an app or to a product you're building, again, you want to be able to just get the core functionality out of this. We'll talk about later that a lot of people do wrong. And so on the flip side of that, we have prototyping, which is a prototype can be considered a medium to high fidelity simulation of a working model. So again, this is more so of your proof of concept, a little bit more functionality to it, a little more of the bells and whistles as it relates to what the end user will see. And again, we'll talk about some of the best practices, some of the things that you want to look for, and some of the great things that can come out of building a really, really awesome prototype. Like I talked about before, low fidelity versus high fidelity. On the left, we talked about the low fidelity. You're very, very bare bones. We have a basic outline of some of the screens and some of the widgets and some of the assets. But again, there's no color, there's no flair, there's no content. There's really just placeholders, if you will. It kind of looks like a placeholder. It looks like a template that you would get. And so think about a low fidelity as a template that you can start out with. And, the cool thing about some we'll talk about in the future is some of the low code and no code solutions already have pre-built templates. So again, if you're looking to build something, if you're looking to get a good proof of concept and you don't know where to start, if you're not a designer by trade, people have already done the work out there. So there's great ways where you can start. On your right, it looks pretty similar, right? This is going to be your high fidelity prototype in this case. And so we see more of the vibrant colors. We see some of the assets are filled in. We have more so the titles and the names closer to what you're going to see at the end of the process. And so when I say in the process, I mean, as the end user, this is what you normally see. Both these are very, very good wireframes to me. The biggest point from here, like I said, is just whether you're doing a low fidelity or high fidelity, is that you just want to make sure that you're getting the core functionality out of it. How prototyping stands out and some of the ways that I've seen prototyping really help people in a positive way as it relates to their product. I won't go into every last one of these, but again, I'll just really touch on some of the really important ones. Like I mentioned before, it allows you to really, get some early good feedback on the product. This goes without saying that if you don't have good feedback, if you're not getting any type of feedback in this phase, that you're still operating off of assumptions. Building that out, you want to be able to get that out there. And so you can get feedback from the users, from the problem itself, if you will. That's one of the biggest things, feedback. And we'll continue to say that in future sessions. And another one is more cost and time saving compared to full stage development. Again, that's a really big one to me, especially when you talk about working as, a solopreneur. Maybe you're working part-time on this, or maybe you're coming out of pocket and you're bootstrapping at this point, which most people are, the prototyping stage. A prototype can really save you a lot of time and money in the end. And it provides the users with better understanding of the product workflow. Again, it's that one old saying that, I could show you better than I could tell you. The biggest thing, like I said, and that goes back to the first point, which is you want to be able to get good feedback. And again, you won't be able to get good feedback without giving them something tangible. When we talk about prototyping and some of the best practices, a question might pop up in your head at this point is, when should we use them? And when would be beneficial to use them at this point? And so these are some of the reasons why you should, and maybe when you should use them at this point. Some of the key points where I just pulled out were, again, the first one is early validation. We mentioned that before in the last slide, which is talking about you want to get that good feedback and as much feedback as possible and early on as possible. Ultimately, you want to make sure that, hey, like, are we building something that's worthwhile? Is this something that people are going to use? Is this something that people even need at this point? And so second point, brainstorming ideas goes without saying. You want to make sure that you're keeping an open mind as you're building this, but at the same time, it's just a great way to really, I don't want to call it a brain dump, but just a good way to really get creative, especially in the early stage. Everything and anything goes, so as long as it sticks, right? And developer buy-in, if you're handing this off to, working with another team, if you're collaborating with another team, if you're looking to get some buy-in, if you're looking just to, maybe add a CTO, add another founder who's technical, you want to make sure that it's easy and to make sure that they understand it. And so a low fidelity or a high fidelity prototype, either one would really serve you beneficial as it relates to getting that buy-in and understanding that, developers want to have an easier time as they look to build this, especially if you're looking to add to your team. Next is usability testing. That goes into the last couple of points, which again, you just want to make sure that it's worthwhile, that, it's not buggy. Obviously it will be buggy at some point, especially in the prototyping phase. You want to make sure that the core functionality and that we can get from point A to point B. And so the companies and the startups that do that well, obviously are the ones that are able to scale and to do awesome things with their product. And so just pay attention to that. And then lastly, like I said before, keeping stakeholders in the loop. When we talk about stakeholders, that can be future customers, that could be investors, that could be people who are just, generally interested in seeing you win. You want to make sure that they understand that, hey, we're working. Yeah, we might be in stealth mode, whether you are building in stealth mode, maybe you are being visible out there, but at the same time, you want to make sure that people see the process, right? So even though, yes, your version 0.1 isn't going to be as great as version, your V12, but at the same time, people are going to be able to see the progress. And so there is a lot of power in being candid in terms of, where you guys are and how you guys have grown and how you've built and how you've gone from point A to point B. So if you found any of that interesting, for more information on 0 to 1, prototyping, and all things Microsoft for startups, check out aka.ms/from 0 to 1. Again, that's aka.ms/from 0 to 1. Learn more all about 0 to 1, about this program, about what I've been doing over the past few months. There you'll find live AMAs. You'll find some blog posts that we've done for a whole series over the past few months and plenty more. So stay tuned and find out more about anything about prototyping needs from there. So look forward to you guys checking that out and check the link below, and happy hacking.